Before I begin my annual report, the Unitarian Universalist United Nations office was founded at the suggestion of Unitarian ambassador, American ambassador to the United Nations, Adlai Stevenson in 1962. We have two primary purposes: preparing UU youth and adults for global leadership, and a global advocacy program of UU values at the United Nations and beyond. Our intergenerational spring seminar is the crown jewel of our global leadership program. This year, our topic was picking up the pieces, building a culture of peace. This conference was planned and implemented on an intergenerational basis, with our youth in leadership positions, with a high school student and an undergraduate student serving as conference co-chairs. This intergenerational committee selected speakers, topics, venues, and organized all aspects of our annual international conference. This year, we had 155 conference participants, half of whom were youth. We had to turn away about 50 people due to space constraints. Next year, we'll get larger spaces. This year, we had Ambassador Prudence Bushnell, who was my ambassador in Kenya, and we both survived the terrorist bombing of the American Embassy in Nairobi in 1998. Both Ambassador Bushnell and I retired from the State Department early due to our frustrations with the current administration. Other speakers included my friend Keith Boykin, the highest-ranking gay official in the Clinton White House, who went to law school with Barack Obama. He spoke about his life as an African-American gay political commentator and activist. Gillian Sorensen, who is a UU and former Deputy Secretary General of the United Nations, spoke with passion about the absolute necessity for the United States government to pay its dues and peacekeeping assessments as it has agreed to pay to the United Nations. Adam Gehertstein from the UUA Washington Advocacy Office gave a very informative lecture on how our global leaders can effectively conduct advocacy campaigns. After each of the speakers, participants formed breakout sessions to discuss what they had heard and how to implement building a culture of peace in their own communities. We held a reception at All Souls Church in New York with community leaders to celebrate the accomplishments of the conference. Reverend Rosemary Bray McNack spoke to this reception. We concluded our seminar with a service conducted by Reverend Jan Carlson Bull at the United Nations Chapel in the Church Center building where the UNO has its offices. All of the 155 participants left to their respective congregations enlightened and inspired. As an example of how we can go about achieving the United Nations Millennium Development Goals, the UNO designed, with the help of Dick Ford, a project in Ghana to help children orphaned by HIV/AIDS. We did not tell this community what they needed. Rather, we asked them how we could help. We were told by the Queen Mothers of Mayokrobo district in Ghana that they needed help to pay school fees for children orphaned by AIDS in their community. Thanks to the support of our members, the UNO is able to pay the school fees of 160 children and pay for health insurance for the children and the caregiving families. As you can see, these children are happy and cool. We work in close partnership with the Queen Mothers of this unique and vibrant matriarchal society. Thanks to the support of our members, these wonderful children have a chance at an education. The project stands ready to be enlarged by support from congregational and individual donors. Moreover, this model project stands ready to be replicated by our congregations in other communities as needed. We conduct an amazingly ambitious program of education and advocacy with a very small office and a tiny budget. Our internship program provides global leadership opportunities at the United Nations for both high school and college interns. These 4 interns, Chris Benson and Raman Kumar, both in college, Jacqueline Majeski and Reed Robinson, both in high school, provide the office with the depth it could not afford to hire. The UUUNO has 2 paid staff, Zoya Craig, the program manager, and yours truly as the executive director. This small office is able to exercise tremendous influence at the United Nations. Because of the consultative status the UUUNO has in its own right, and that it exercises on behalf of the UUA, we possess United Nations credentials, which allow us to attend most meetings at the United Nations, like the one at the General Assembly. At other meetings, we are able to ask questions, present our UU ideas for consideration at the United Nations. Our United Nations status allowed us to work with other UN non-governmental organizations to lobby every member of the Security Council to support a UN peacekeeping force in Darfur that has an adequate mandate to protect innocent civilians and that is funded and equipped properly to do the job. When I met with the United States mission to the United Nations, I urged them to come up with the 25 transport helicopters needed by UN peacekeepers. My former colleagues at the U.S. mission said that they were still looking for the helicopters. I volunteered that I know where they could find them. They didn't want to listen to my advice. They are my former colleagues because I am a retired Foreign Service officer. While the United States government is still looking for its helicopters, the government of Ethiopia has already donated 5 of its transport helicopters to the UN peacekeepers in Sudan. I should also mention that the United States is the largest debtor to the United Nations. While it pledges to pay its dues and UN peacekeeping assessments, it is billions of dollars in arrears in its payments, making it difficult for the United Nations to mount a credible peacekeeping operation in Darfur or anywhere else. UN peacekeepers, I should remind you, cost far less than US troops. It's a much more economical way to create peace. Access to the United Nations has allowed me to participate in planning for the upcoming Human Rights Conference in Paris. While the UN had the human rights of almost every conceivable group in mind when they considered this conference, I noticed that GLBT rights were not on the agenda. At my 3rd planning meeting, I raised my hand and I insisted that GLBT rights be included in the agenda of the Human Rights Conference. At first reluctant, UN planners have now firmly placed GLBT rights on the conference agenda. They have named me the GLBT Caucus Coordinator for the Human Rights Conference, and I will be presenting a GLBT workshop at the conference in Paris in September. Not only content to speak in the halls of the United Nations, the UUUNO has a long history of political action in the streets to end the war in Iraq and to end genocide in Darfur. The UUUNO helped organize Save Darfur rallies in New York, and it partnered with the UUSC and Save Darfur Coalition to organize the Darfur rally in Washington, D.C. in December 2007. The UUUNO is an associate organization of the UUA, which exercises UUA's consultative status at the United Nations. It does not receive funding from the UUA, but depends on the support of contributions of individual members and congregations. Only with your support can we keep the UU voice alive at the United Nations. Thank you.